Welcome to KOIN Conversations. My name is Brenna Green. I am a sports anchor and reporter here at KOIN 6. Today, we are going to be delving into all things Oregon Ducks. A exciting season ahead, a lot of question marks ahead, and that's where you bring in USA Today Oregon Ducks beat reporter Zach Neel. Zach, thank you for joining me because you are down in Eugene. You have the pulse on this team so much more than those of us up here in Portland. So just how are you doing today, first of all?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to talk with you all things Oregon Ducks.
Yeah. My first question is just kind of what is the vibe around this team down in Eugene right now?
It's very new. Like there's a lot of excitement, but a lot of questions going into this year. Obviously, they lost 10 guys to the NFL draft last year after a very successful season in 2024. They replaced so many guys, so many young players on this team that will be stepping into new starting roles. I think the team returns only four starters from last year on both the offense and defensive side combined. So, yeah, there's a lot of excitement because we know that this team is really talented. Dan Lanning and his staff recruit very well. So, we know that these guys are going to be good. It's just kind of a question about like how soon they're going to be good. So there's high expectations, but a lot of anticipation for the year to start.
Yeah, I think everyone's just kind of wondering how this is all going to come together and what everything is going to look like down there. I mean, we have not had a team like this that just has so much talent, but so many unknowns. I feel like in quite a while for Oregon. So it should be a very interesting year to say the least. Just what's it like covering this team with so many unknowns right now?
It's fun because you can go like the preseason like avenue has been pretty fun because you can go in so many different ways when talking about this team. I mean, a year ago the question was always actually for the past few years it was always Bo Nix or Dylan Gabriel, like we know what they are, we know what they bring to the table, like how are they going to be able to lead this offense? Now you look at the quarterback, whether it's Dante Moore or Austin Novosad. I personally think it's going to be Dante Moore. You've seen a little bit about what he can do before at UCLA, but we haven't really seen him in this Oregon offense. We know that he's a talented player. We haven't seen him run Will Stein's offense really before and be given the keys. So they're just, and you can go to any position group on the roster, and there's six, seven, eight questions that you can ask about, what they're going to be like, what they're going to do this year. So sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming because there's so much to talk about and so many unknowns, but I think that's what makes this job fun. You can really kind of go wherever you want with it.
You mentioned Dante Moore. It kind of feels like he's it's a very similar situation to a few years ago with Bo Nix, where he comes in and everybody knows he's going to be the starter, but
Yeah.
they're like, well, maybe Ty Thompson.
Yeah.
And as much as, it kind of feels a little preordained that Dante
Mhm.
is the guy down there. What does Dante bring to this offense?
He's a really talented passer. Like just looking at his skills on the field, he's got the arm that you want. He's a former five-star quarterback, who I think was the number three quarterback in his recruiting class, if I'm correct. He has all the intangibles that you want on the field. He upped his running this past offseason. He told us at Media Day that he's gotten up to 21 and a half miles per hour on the radar gun. So he's looking to, run a little bit more than we were used to from his time at UCLA. He can make the throws, he can throw it deep. What's going to be interesting to see with him is how he conforms to Will Stein's offense because, as we saw with both Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel, they played within the system, and that meant a lot of checkdowns and screens and safe throws and taking what the defense gives you. A lot of Oregon fans may not like that as much because they consider it quote unquote boring, but you know what? That's winning football, and when you're owning the ball and you're not turning it over, you're usually going to win a lot of games, especially when you have the talent that Oregon does on offense. So Dante Moore at UCLA, he threw the ball away a lot. I mean, he had, I think, nine interceptions in those few games that he started. So he's someone who is going to try and take the top off and take risks sometimes, but and there's a place for that in the offense. But it's going to be interesting to see how Will Stein kind of confines him and gets him to play within the offense in Eugene.
Corrals him a little bit. Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
that 21 and a half mile per hour stat, I guess you could say, that he gave
Yeah.
us during media day, you could tell how incredibly proud he was of that. I mean, he said he almost cried, I think,
Yeah. I loved that.
with how excited he was. And it's gonna be interesting to see how much he also runs the ball, how that all kind of factors in, because I think Bo was a little bit more of a scrambler than Dylan
Mhm.
was, and that was one of the things that really made Bo um, such a threat, was the fact that he could take off with his feet. I'll never forget that Utah game, I believe, when he had the
I think it was
sprained
actually
ankle.
this oh yes, this the sprained ankle against Utah. Yes.
Yeah,
That was
and
tough.
how he could not move, but they somehow pulled that game out, and he had that one play where he had to
Mhm.
run, and you could tell it took everything
Yeah.
out of him. But that was like such a huge part of the offense a few years ago. So I'm excited to see if that comes back with Dante as
I think they
well.
actually, just to add on to that, I think they learned a lot about the offense though
Yeah.
with Bo in that first year because they had him run a lot. And then you saw in his second year, and then with Dylan Gabriel last year, they kind of had them run when they needed to. And so
Yes.
I know Dante's going to want to run as much as he can, but I
Uh-huh.
don't think they're going to ask him to run a ton.
Yeah.
Coming into this year, he is negative 78 career rushing yards. So I don't think he's going to be this scrambling quarterback. But when he needs to get out of the pocket, I think he can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they learned that they probably didn't want to risk having their quarterback be as mobile as
Yeah.
Bo was in year one, because we
Yeah.
saw how that ended up going if he gets hurt. Um,
Absolutely.
it seems as though, I mean, we'll see who's RB1 back there. I think it's going to be really interchangeable between
I think so.
Mackay Hughes and Noah Whittington. I'm really excited for Noah's year. I think he's going to be special. But for Oregon fans who may not be so much up on the transfers on this team, Mackay Hughes transfers in from Tulane. He's got a lot of hype around him as a running back right now.
Mhm.
I voted in a few. I vote in the AP All American polls, I guess, All American teams, and I have to do my research. So there's a few people who have him like second, third team in
Mhm.
those All American preseason rankings per se. So what does Mackay bring to this team that's unique?
He's just, I mean, what he did in his 2 years at Tulane obviously put him on the map. He was the number one rated running back in the transfer portal this year. When you look at him, just sheer size and stature, it's just like, oh my gosh. Like, of course, I don't play college football, but I would never want to try to tackle this guy because he is literally a bowling ball of muscle. In his 2 years at Tulane, he ran for almost 3,000 yards and 22 touchdowns. Obviously, that was at a lower level of college football, but I think that he still has the skills to be really good at this level. But like you said, we talked to Rashad Samples, the running backs coach, yesterday, and I asked him about, what's his philosophy on splitting those carries between, I mean, do you want a workhorse running back at running back one and then someone at RB2? And he said, you know what? If we can, we would like to even it out to keep everyone fresh. So I think that they're going to really try and do that with Noah Whittington this year and make sure that he gets a lot of carries too. Because if you can have both of those guys healthy once you get into November, December, I think this team is going to be in a really good spot.
I really want Noah to score a kickoff return this year, considering how the last one went last year. How
He
he
deserves it. Yes,
how he
he
basically
needs one.
scored,
Yeah.
but he doesn't get the credit for it because he dropped it at the 1 yard line. Oh my gosh!
Shout
I
out to
mean,
Jaden Lamar. Shout out to Jaden Lamar. That was a
exactly.
big play.
Yeah. I loved how Rashad was like, well, without him, who knows? So without
Yeah,
Jane Lamar, who knows how that game against Boise State goes?
it was close. Yeah, that was a pivotal play.
I'm very much rooting because I know Noah last year coming into the season had such a chip on his shoulder about the fact that they hadn't scored
Mhm.
on a kickoff return in a really long time, and then he almost pulls it off, and then
Almost did it.
and does it. And it was an amazing return. I mean, he was like on the 1
Yeah.
yard line. All right, switching over to the wide receiver room. Wow, what a
Mhm.
difference a year makes. Uh,
Yeah.
Last year, it was like, oh my gosh, like how are they going to handle all these guys? And this year, it's especially with the Evan Stewart injury, who we don't know if he's going to be coming back this year.
Mhm.
There is a lot of question marks over there. So, just what do you think of that room?
Yeah, I mean, we could say this about every room. Like I said, there's a lot of questions going in. We don't know who is actually exactly is going to start. But again, there's so much talent there that this is one of the more intriguing rooms because, I could name three or four guys who I think will be the leading receivers. It could be completely wrong. There could be another three or four guys who end up being the guys. So, it's all led by true freshman DeCorian Moore, the five-star who was the number one wide receiver in the recruiting class last year. From everything I've heard throughout spring and summer and now in fall camp, they think this guy is going to be seriously something special. Last year, we saw a couple of true freshman wide receivers in Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams at Ohio State and Alabama, who were incredible. It feels, very cheap to say that DeCorian Moore is going to be that just because it's so recent and they were so good. But he could be up there. I think he will be the leading wide receiver for this team. I think he's going to be that good even as a true freshman. And then there's other guys who have, bided their time in Eugene, former high-end four-star recruits, even a five-star in Jurion Dickey, who have kind of been waiting for their time, waiting behind Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden, just, excited to go out there and prove what they can do. So there's just such an abundance of talent here that I think that with Oregon's offense, with as good as I think Dante Moore is going to be, we're bound to learn a few names this year that become household names.
Yeah. So are you saying that DeCorian Moore you think is going to be the breakout wide receiver for this group this year, or do you have somebody else on your mind?
I mean, he is the number one, yes, breakout because he's never played before. Obviously, that's technically a breakout. It feels a little bit cheap to me because it's like, yeah, of course, that's everyone's answer. A guy I'm really looking at and I've been hearing good things about is Malik Benson, who is the Florida State transfer. He fits like a role in this offense that I think is very similar to what Troy Franklin was. He's a 6'1", 195 pounds, incredibly fast. He, I think, is going to be the deep threat guy. And with Dante Moore's arm strength, with Will Stein's, ability to sometimes call plays that take it over the top and try and get behind the defense, I think Malik Benson is going to be someone who has a really good season for Oregon this year, and fans really know of, once we get into October.
Someone I was trying to think about who my breakout wide receiver would be, and I just kept going back to the fact that last year I was so shocked how I kept hearing about Kyler Casper over and over again. And I was kind of like, okay, like this guy, I just kept hearing about it. And then he got injured and he never played.
Yep.
So, and then Will Stein said a few weeks ago that they need Kyler to play big this year. They need him to be big. So I'm going to go with Kyler. We'll see how it goes. Obviously he's coming off an injury that kept him out all season, but I have high hopes for him considering all the hype about him going into last year when that was just such a loaded receiver room. And now it's really his time. So I'm excited to see how that goes for him. And maybe
He
I
would have
just
been
go
he would
ahead.
have been my second pick for sure. I think
Okay.
that Kyler, he's such a cool story too because, he got injured. He told us the media day that he was like really depressed for a few weeks after that injury and like his dad, who was a former NFL wide receiver, like helped him out of it and kind of helped him get back in the role of, trying to fight back and rehab. So, I think Kyler is a good choice and I think a really fun story.
Yeah. I'm excited for that one as well. Not technically a receiver, but somebody who still gets the ball, Kenyon Sadiq. What has it been like for you to watch his rise? Because he was kind of a nobody until the Big Ten championship game, and now it feels like everyone around college football knows him. So why do you think that is?
I think nationally, yes, he was a nobody, but if you follow Oregon closely over the past year or two, it's been almost, dare I say, frustrating because you see glimpses from him every now and again, and you hear stuff in practice like, this kid is absolutely incredible. Like his size, speed combo, and just the talent that he has. He is like a freak of nature of an athlete. When Will Stein last year, I think before the season started, came out and started comparing him to Brock Bowers and saying like this guy is going to be the best tight end in the nation one day. And it's like, okay, like you can't say that and then not let us see it. So then we didn't see very much of it last year until the Big Ten championship. He had those two first quarter touchdowns, one of which he hurdled the defender for. It's so exciting that we're finally in a season where we get to see him. Will Stein's come out and said, we need to get this guy 6, 8, 10 touches per game just to, do him justice, just to get our offense going. So, yeah, watching him has been really fun. I can't wait to see it on Saturdays and stop hearing tell of what he can do. I can't wait to see it finally.
I know we keep getting these little like munchable moments, for lack of a better word. You know, he keeps
Hmm.
hurtling people, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like this is gonna be amazing. But we just haven't seen
Yeah.
like the full accoutrements, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, of his game. So I'm really excited about that. And just finally for this segment, as we wrap up talking about the offense, do you have any other sleeper players that you're looking at for this year that you think are going to have a big impact?
I mean, there's several ways I could go. I feel bad that we didn't talk about the offensive line at all. It's tough when you're talking about sleepers. I think Isaiah World is going to be an incredible player. I've talked to former Oregon offensive lineman and NFL offensive lineman Jeff Schwartz about him a lot, and he said this guy is just incredible. Like he needs to get a little bit stronger, but the footwork, the technique, like his instincts are really good. He thinks he'll be an early first round pick next year. I'm also very excited to see wide receiver Jeremiah McClellan. I think he is a redshirt freshman who showed some flashes. He was a high-end four-star recruit that came in last year. He's one of those guys in the receiver room that I think could easily step up and be a starter once he finally gets those reps and gets that chance to show what he can do.
Well, you hit on my sleeper player because I was going to say
Okay.
Isaiah World. Um,
Okay.
y'all, when Isaiah World walks into a room, you know he is there. This
He's so
man is
big.
6'8", 320.
Yeah.
Okay? Like an impression has been made. So like I kind of intentionally, I guess not intentionally, but the offensive line, there's a lot of question marks around that position group as well.
Hmm.
Shocker.
Yeah.
That's what we keep saying. But I think Isaiah could have a really big impact on that offensive line this year. And he seems to have a personality that really galvanizes people as well. He's super
Yeah.
unique. And that's kind of what you want in an offensive lineman. You want somebody who's a little like able to shake it up and have a good time and just be like kind of a little weird. Like that's what offensive linemen are. So I'm
No.
really excited to see him not only, play out there, but I think he's going to kind of assume more and more of a leadership role since he is a transfer from Nevada. He's still working his way in there, but it seems like he has a lot of respect for people. And yeah, he's just a big dude. He's a big
Well,
dude.
what I love about him is, I mean, you hear 6'8", 320. It's like, all right, that's a big, beefy guy. Dare I call him skinny? Like he looks like a defensive end out there. Like I don't know what his body fat percentage is, but there's not a lot of extra weight on there. I mean, he's just a big rock solid guy.
Well, Zach, thank you so much. We're gonna head to break, and then we're gonna talk about the defense when we come back. So let's do that. Welcome back to KOIN Conversations. I'm Brenna Green. This is Zach Neel, USA Today reporter for the Oregon Ducks, and we are now switching gears to the Ducks defense. What an interesting mix of players on the defense. You have a lot of guys that I guess you have some guys who have experience at Oregon, you have some guys who have experience at other schools, and a lot of guys that are looking for their first bite. What do you think the identity of this defense is going to be this year?
I don't think it's going to be very different from what we saw last year. I mean, I think last year's defense was really good. Yes, they faltered late in the Rose Bowl for various reasons, but I think it was still a very good, hard-nosed defense that was great against the run, got after the quarterback, and was solid in the secondary. I think that you're still going to get that same thing up in the front seven. It's going to be a very good team in the trenches. Mateo Uiagalelei, Tatum Tuioti, Blake Purchase are going to be really good off the edge and going to make life tough on a lot of quarterbacks. The biggest difference, I think, is in the secondary this year. I mean, the transformation that position group has seen just in pure size. I mean, last year there was not a starting cornerback or safety over the height of 5'11". This year, there's only two in the entire room who are shorter than 6 foot, and that those two people are 5'11". So you got a lot of 6'1", 6'2", 6'4" guys back there. Just a lot of length that I think really allows this defense to do more what they want to do, as Tosh Lapointe told us a couple weeks ago. So I think all in all, I expect another really good season out of the defense. Again, these are all blue chip recruits who may not have gotten their time to shine just yet, but they're going to step right in and be ready to go.
I talked about a player that people are obsessed with nationally in Kenyon Sadiq. We got to go to the other side of the ball now with Mateo Uiagalelei, who comes up all the time. What makes him someone that you think that everyone is so fascinated by?
I think he's just really good. It's not like he's that unique or different. He doesn't have this insane body style like, Kayvon Thibodeau did. I think he's just purely really, really good. His ability to kind of move inside and outside. I know Tosh Lapoy's told us that they're playing him at a three-eye technique. They're playing him on the outside. He's going, standing up as a linebacker at times. He's just a very talented individual. He's also a fun one to watch in the Dan Lanning era because he was one of Dan's, first major recruiting wins over USC too. And for him to come
Football
in and
signing day.
develop, yes, absolutely. For him to come in and kind of develop and be that guy, play a little bit as a freshman, have a pretty big role last year as a sophomore, and then come in his junior year and take over as, the former Big Ten sack leader last year, and now without Jordan Birch there too. He's going to be the guy for this Oregon defense. And that's not to discredit guys like Tatum and Blake and a lot of other guys on that defensive line, but I think there's just so much excitement for what Mateo can do. It feels like Oregon really has their potential first round defensive end, for the first time since Kayvon a few years ago.
We talked about some transfers on the offensive side. Now we got to go to the defensive side. What do you think of Bear Alexander and Dylan Teneman? I'm pronouncing that correctly, right?
Thieneman.
There we go. Thieneman. Gosh.
Yes, you're
There's
good.
a
You're
lot of
good.
names
It's a hard
around here,
one.
guys.
It's a hard one.
I got Uiagalelei right.
That's true.
So which is one step better than Dan Lanning, who did not pronounce that last name correctly at Big Ten
That's
Media
a
Day.
that's a very tough one, honestly. I'm still struggling with it sometimes. To your first question,
Yeah.
Bear Alexander, I think, has a really high upside. He's an intriguing player to watch because he's had several stops in his college career so far. I mean, he transferred high schools several times. Then he went to Georgia, and then he transferred to USC, and now he transfers to Oregon. So he knows that this is, his last opportunity to make a mark at the college level and boost his NFL draft stock and continue his career. I think he's landed in one of the best spots he could because Dan Lanning, great defensive coach, Tosh Lapoy, Tony Tuioti. I mean, these are really, really good NFL caliber defensive coaches. He just has to put it together and be the guy on the field, which I think he will. It's a really low risk signing for Oregon with a lot of upside because if it doesn't work out, Oregon's fine. They've got other guys to play at that position. But if Bear does work out and he's that guy, he's got an NFL body type, he could be really good.
And Dylan, I mean, there's so much hype around him right now as
Yeah.
well. What
Dylan,
are
I
your thoughts
think,
on him?
is he's the single player I'm most excited to see this year, just because of the hype around him coming in and the position he plays. We talked about last year, the secondary. Last couple of years, the safety play has not been elite for Oregon. It's been good. Guys like Evan Williams, Kobe Savage, they're solid. Dylan comes in as, behind Caleb Downs with Ohio State, the number two safety in the nation. I mean, he's projected to be a first, second round pick next year. What he did in his 2 seasons at Purdue, of all places, was incredible. The stats that he put up, we've heard endlessly throughout his time at Oregon through spring that his work ethic is just second to none. This is a guy that shows up at the facilities at 5 a.m. every day, is already like through with workouts and stuff by the time other players even get there in the morning. And he's the last one to leave as well. So I think he's going to be a really, really good player. I'm curious to see how much freedom he has now that there's other really good players around him and he's not kind of the only guy back there like he was at Purdue. That's
Yes.
all due respect to Purdue, but Oregon has kind of been lacking that elite safety play since Javon Holland a few years ago. So I think he could be the next guy to come in and just, make a mark on this defense.
Let's switch gears to the linebacker room. So, the headliner there is Bryce Betcher. He keeps saying that he feels like he slept on nationally as one of the best linebackers in the country. What do you think of that?
I think he's a very talented player. I'm excited to see him again with another year under his belt. He's such an interesting story. I mean, being the baseball player and coming over as a walk-on and then just kind of forcing his way into that room and forcing himself to get playing time. I think he's a very good player. He's one of the highest rated returning linebackers in the Big Ten this year. I know that. I think that this is a really young room, as with, like we've said with most of the other rooms as well. His voice and his leadership, I think, and his experience in that room is so valuable to this team. Because there are a lot of guys who haven't played before. Devin Jackson next to him, I think, is going to be really solid. He's a really good player. Then you've got these three redshirt freshmen who I think will come in and try to make a name for themselves. But it's all led by Bryce, and he's kind of the face of that defense right now because Mateo doesn't say much. Mateo doesn't like being in front of the camera much, but I think Bryce has gotten really good at it. He's kind of got a face for TV as well, so he definitely is one of the leaders of this team right now, and he's in a good spot with it.
I loved that quote from Tosh when he said he was watching Mateo kind of direct the defense and he felt like he was having an out of body
Yeah,
experience watching Mateo do that. I'm like, you know what? I get that.
yeah, we
Because
do.
he can be very quiet, but he's at least trying. Whereas Bryce, I think that leadership just comes so naturally for him.
Mhm.
Um, so let's go to the defensive backs now. You alluded to this that they've redone that room a little bit and now it is much taller.
Yes.
So much taller. And that was one of the things that was talked about a lot after the Rose Bowl was that, that room in particular was just getting beat over the top again and again.
Mhm.
And maybe one of the reasons why was because of their height. Who do you think is going to be a breakout in that room in particular? Because there really have been a lot of good corners that have come through Oregon over the last few years. And it feels like kind of one takes over the mantle from the other. So who do you have pegged as the breakout there this year?
The guy I'm looking at is redshirt freshman Ife Obadegwu, which that will be a fun one for a lot of people to learn how to say too. Um, Ife is he was a very highly rated recruit. He came in and redshirted last year, didn't get much time. Um, his body, I mean, we're talking about the size of all of these guys. He came in, we interviewed him the other day. I thought he was a linebacker coming in. I didn't notice, like, recognize who he was at first. He's so big. And from everything I've heard in spring ball and fall camp so far is that he's really, really having a breakout season. I think he's going to win one of the starting jobs, probably alongside Jaleel Florence. If I were to take a guess, there's several guys that could occupy that space, but I think he's someone who just has that size. I think he's 6'2". I don't know his weight off the top of my head, but really, really physical corner. You can put him out on an island and kind of trust that he can get the job done. So that's a name that I certainly have circled going into this year.
The pick I have there, and this is mostly just from being around him. Like the thing about corners, you have to be a little crazy to be a corner.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Oh yeah.
one of the requirements is that you're a little insane because you have to be used to getting beat all the time and getting back up for the next play. Not all the time, but you know what I mean. You have to kind of,
Totally.
yeah. And the person that I'm around where I'm like, I can just see you have this like mindset that's a little bit different is Sion Lalea.
Yeah.
I think he just there's something like a little crazy about him when you're around him, but like in a good way, where you're like,
Mhm.
oh, that guy brings it out
Yeah.
on the field. Like you can tell he's a spicy dude out there, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to do something this year in that corner room that, you know, we don't have the Jabbar Muhammad this year.
Hmm.
There's no Christian Gonzalez coming in this year.
Totally.
So there's a lot of opportunity there in particular, I would say for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and then transitioning. Let me go back to my rundown here. Like, do you have any? And is there any other defensive sleeper players for you this year?
Hmm. Sleeper players. I know we talked about the safety position already with Dylan Thieneman. I think Kingston Lopa
Mm,
alongside him is going to be a really good player. I think he's 6'5", which you don't really see that size much
no.
at the safety position. Very rangy player, former linebacker in high school too, so you know that he's willing to get up in the box, play the run as well. I think he's someone I've got my eye on. That safety position is kind of wide open with him, Peyton Woodyard, and Aaron Flowers next to Thieneman. I wouldn't be surprised if Lopa gets that because he redshirted last year, but then going into the Big Ten championship game against Penn State and Tyler Warren, who is, arguably the best tight end of the nation, Dan and Tosh threw Kingston out there and said, "Hey, guard Tyler Warren. Like that's your assignment." And he did a pretty good job of it too. So I know that they've got a lot of confidence in him. I think he's up for the task.
He's been talked about a lot this year,
Yeah.
and he's been talked about a lot in the context of that of that assignment that he had against Penn
Mhm.
State. And by the way, I don't think it's arguably. I think Tyler Warren was the best tight end
I
in the
think he
country
was. Yeah.
last year. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. So,
Yeah.
the fact that Kingston was able to come in and do that is kind of insane with such little playing experience. So the fact that he was able to come in and do a decent job, I think that is definitely someone who I had on my board. For
Well, and
me,
just the coaches had the confidence in him to do that. Like we
yes.
didn't know much about him, but the fact that he did that, and I don't even care how the result ended up. Like the fact that Dan was confident enough to put him out there and say, "Hey, you do this." It's like, okay, this guy must be good.
My sleeper player is not someone who I think is a sleeper within the program, but I think for fans, maybe is. And
Mhm.
that player is Jaleel Florence.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that Jaleel has not played in essentially a year and a half. He has an injury against Arizona State. He keeps thinking he's going to come back next year, and then he keeps not happening, keeps not happening. And I think fans have just kind of forgotten about him a little bit because of the fact that
Mhm.
he just hasn't been around. He made 9 starts in 2023, his sophomore year, and he played in 8 games as a freshman. That is nothing to snuff at whatsoever. And I think that he is really raring and ready to go. At Media Day, it was very clear that he has kind of found a new appreciation for the game of football because of how long he has been sidelined. So I am excited to see him kind of hit it out there and have a lot of fire. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Noah Whittington coming into last year when he had been sidelined, and just talking to him at Media Day last year. It was really, you could just feel his sense of appreciation for the game. And I think that that's kind of similar with Jaleel. So I'm excited to see him bring the fire out there
Yep. I
for
love that.
sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up with this. First of all, what's your prediction for the regular season record for Oregon?
I think I think they go 11-1. That would be my prediction. I could see them going 10-2 just because there are so many unknowns. You've got a few tough road games, at Iowa, at Penn State, and at Washington are the ones that I have circled. I think they lose to Penn State in Happy Valley, but I think they get the job done against everyone else. I don't know that that gets them into the Big Ten championship game because I think that Ohio State and Penn State are going to be really good as well.
Yeah.
And just because of tiebreakers, they might not get in there. But yeah, I know it's an optimistic take, but I think they do go 11-1.
Wow. Okay. I like it. Um, I was thinking more 9-3. I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's just so much inexperience out there, and that's the
Yeah.
thing that makes me nervous. And not even just inexperience. There's just pure inexperience out there, but there's also a lot of inexperience together.
Mhm.
Um, so that makes things like communication difficult. I definitely think that Penn State game is going to be a very tall task for them to win. Um, I could see them dropping one more on the road and then, randomly dropping a game at
Yeah.
home that, things just, last year, like Boise State would be a good example. Like, that was a really rough game for them. And because they'd had so many parts that had been around, I think they were able to pull it out. But, this year, does this team have that experience going? Like, if they have a game like that, I don't know. So, yeah, I'm a little bit more. Dubious isn't the right word, but I just don't want to get too high or too low on this team right now because
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I have a hangover from last year and what occurred in the final game. I'm not sure.
It's hard to forget.
Rough press box to be in, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Was not great.
So obviously, in your prediction, they make the college football playoff.
I
So
think they do. I think even if they go 9-3, like you predict, I don't think they would, but I think they could go 10-2 and still get in there.
yeah, I could see
Judging
that too.
on strength of schedule and just being in the Big Ten, I think they do. So, yeah, how far they go in the playoff, I don't know. I've told people I don't think that this is the championship year. I think next year would be a much better bet. This feels like more of a setup season,
Yeah.
just because next year they've got Dante Moore and all of these guys back and their experience. So, but I think that there's high expectations for this year. I think they can definitely make some noise once again.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if they're in the CFP again. It would surprise me if they make it any further than the quarters.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting also to just see the CFP this year and the changes that they've made in it. Last year it was a whole situation where if you
Yes.
won your college your conference game, your conference championship game, then you had a bye, and that is not the case this year. It's just top four, which
Yeah.
is probably better. It's so
Oh, I
funny.
think it's undoubtedly better.
Yeah. It was so funny last year because I tweeted something after the UW game that was like, it was like Dan Lanning walking out, and it was like, this is, most likely the last time Dan Lanning will be in Autzen this year. And people are like, are you kidding? That's crazy. And I'm like, okay. Like, if
Definitely is.
if they win the Big Ten, which right now they are favored in winning that championship game, they are not coming back here.
Yeah.
Like, there was still so much confusion in November about what that looked like.
Hmm.
So I think it's probably good that they simplified things this year. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way.
Well, and it's gonna be ever changing too, because in a couple
Yes.
years they're gonna add teams, and then it's gonna change a couple years after that, I'm sure. So don't get used to anything that you see. Just kind of tune in every November, see what the deal is, and go from there.
Refresh your memory every off season. Zach, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate your time and enlightening us on all things Oregon in this coin conversation. Have a great rest of August covering camp.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.